What's up YouTube, Webbers5 here, just coming at you with the update to my Magician Pendulum deck. Figured I'd give you guys the update now because we're coming up into April and according to the ban list we might be expecting it to drop any time within April now, so I thought I'd give you guys just a quick update before the ban list drops so you guys can see what I'm using and give yourself some ideas. But guys, remember, my deck is the way it is because it's of how I play. I've based my deck a bit around my play style, so just use mine as a guide to help yourselves, but don't necessarily copy me card for card. And on that note, let's get into the profile. Okay, so starting the profile off, I'm playing standard 3 Astrograph Sorcerer, because he's like the main reason that we're still being able to be used. He's the main active consistency. And with the release of Electrumite, he's also really useful for his Pendulum ability now. For those of you who haven't seen what his Pendulum effect is, you can destroy it to either take a Stargazer Magician from your deck and either special summon it or place it as a scale. So you activate Astro, destroy it, special summon the Stargazer, and then you could just summon another Pendulum and you've got an instant Electrumite out of that. Plus, and this combos so well with Electrumite in so many ways, I don't really need to go into this because lots of people know how it works. Frankly, I am anticipating this could potentially get hit on the ban list. If it goes to 1, we should be fine, because essentially you still loop it with Electrumite anyway. If it gets banned, that's going to be a massive cutback to the consistency, but I'm pretty sure we'll find a way around it. I mean, last list we lost both Double Iris Magician and Skullcrobat Joker, and we found a way to come back from it, so I think we can do it again. Anyway, continuing on with the profile. Next up, 3 Chronograph Sorcerer. Pretty much being played for the same reason as Astrograph, that it takes time, except with Time Gazer. So activate it, and you could take Time Gazer from your deck and either activate it as a scale or special summon it. More likely going to special summon it. A couple times I've set it as a scale because I needed one, but generally, yeah. And then, of course, his monster effect. And then, unlike Astrograph, like Astrograph, when a card in your field is destroyed, you get to special summon him. Astrograph would let you search a copy of a card that's been destroyed that turn. Chronograph lets you special summon an additional monster from your hand, which is pretty useful. So essentially, you could do Astrograph, pop itself, special summon the Stargazer, or place it. And if you've got Chronograph in your hand, you could just activate its effect, special summon, and then summon another monster. The other advantage of Chronograph is that he's also level 6, so if you can get multiple on the field, you can go into an Arito play, which I've noticed some people are playing, some people are trying something else, but I'll get into the extra deck a bit later. But for now, 3 Chronograph is another good way for keeping consistency in the deck. Next, 1 Stargazer and 1 Time Gazer. You're literally only playing these for summoning out Electrumite. So if you don't really have Electrumite, there's not really much point in playing these. But I suppose you could also use it for just getting monsters on the field, just to set up for a link play. You only play 1 of each because you only ever want to summon them off Astrograph and Chronograph. You don't want to see these guys in your hand because they're really not as good. Particularly Time Gazer, because he can't be activated as a scale unless you control no monsters. But every now and then I found Time Gazer's monster effect can come in handy, because his monster effect is each turn the first card in your Pendulum set that will be destroyed by an opponent's card effect is not destroyed, so good way to protect your scales. Stargazer's monster effect almost never comes up. He's just once per turn. If 1 Pendulum monster except itself is returned to your hand by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon that monster back to the field. So good against Compulse. Not that anyone's really playing Compulse. So yeah, he doesn't really come up too much, but yeah. Next up, I'm playing 3 Oath Dragon. 3 Oath Dragon Magician, just to help keep the consistency, get stuff from my extra back into my hand so I can keep summoning. I've noticed some people playing 2. I'm playing 3 just on the grounds that I had the space for it. Not much. His monster effect can be okay to put stuff from your graveyard back into your hand, but doesn't really come up too much. You're mainly going to be using him as a scale. Next, I'm still playing 3 Wisdom Eye just as the amazing way to float for whatever scale you want. Fix your scales so that they're always perfect. I've noticed a lot of competitive builds have been cutting this out, which which does make sense in some aspects because a lot of people want to make space for engines to summon Electrumite. I didn't want to play too many different engines, so I kept Wisdom Eye in. But depending on what happened, I'm thinking that if something does happen to this deck in the ban list, people might start playing Wisdom Eye a bit more. Next, 3 Harmonizing Magician. Your level 4 Pendulum tuner that essentially makes every one of your extract plays really easy. Also, I found it works nicely as a scale to pushing for a little bit of extra damage if necessary. But yeah, this card's going to be really good. This is also another card that could get hit in the lists just to slow the deck down slightly. But I don't think it will. Don't think it will too much, but we'll have to just wait and see. Next, still 3 Purple Poison, because he's still one of the absolute best magicians. Just a great way to out Floodgates if you get anti-spelled. Like, yeah, it'll cost you your battle phase might cost you your battle phase to do it, but it's worth it. So any Floodgate that your opponent's got, summon Purple Poison, crash it, activate his effect on destruction to target a face-up card and destroy it. So get rid of those Floodgates. At my locals, there's actually just been a lot of debate in relation to Purple Poison's Pendulum effect and then going into its monster. Pendulum effect going into the monster effect. His Pendulum effect is if it's Dark Spellcaster battles, pump its strength by 12 and then destroy itself. You can then immediately use its monster effect, and a lot of people at my locals don't seem to understand this, which is where I've actually got into quite a few serious debates over it, but that is just basically how it works. The only difference is the main issue with Purple Poison's Pendulum effect is if you use it to pump a monster's strength, and then you're trying to pop the monster it's battling, and it resolves through, you just won't get your replay out of it. Next, 3 Black Fang, because he's just probably my main scaler, I'd probably say, next to, outside of Harmonizing. Yeah, so his Pendulum effect's I don't really use his Pendulum effect too frequently, but his monster effect's pretty useful. Also find this pretty useful if I'm against like Inspector Board if I'm against like a stall deck which has lots of Floodgates. Because if you Pendulum summon with Black Fang and then you say get like striked, you can at least use Black Fang's effect to target a Dark Spellcaster from your graveyard and special summon it, including itself, which is pretty good. And next up, I'm still going with my 1 Odd Eyes Dissolver because I actually like being able to, because I like having the ability to do a proper fusion summon into my Vortex Dragon so I can at least bring it back later, if necessary. Unlike the standard thing of what people are doing, which is just summoning Absolute and then linking with it to make like Metaltron and then instantly summoning Vortex off that. Which I understand that's a valid way of doing so, but I still like having the option to be able to do a proper fusion summon for him. Also, it's just another way to get a Pendulum on board quickly, because when a monster you control if a Pendulum monster you control battles, you can activate Dissolve set to special summon himself, which is pretty useful. And that's it. That's it for like the main stuff in Magicians and stuff related to the archetype. Next up, I'm playing the Mythical Beast engine for assisting Electrumite. So that consists of 3 Master Cerberus. So as a Pendulum, you destroy him to search a level 7 or lower Mythical Beast effect monster from your deck, which then goes into the other part of my engine, which is the 1 Jackal King. So you use Master Cerberus, destroy himself when you've got no other cards in your deck to search Jackal King, activate Jackal King, destroy itself to special summon back the Master Cerberus, then all you have to do is get another monster in field and it's an instant Electrumite. And then the last card I've got in my Mythical Beast engine is, I know most people are going with 2 Jackal King. I'm actually for the moment going with 1 Jackal King and 1 Mythical Beast Basilisk. Basilisk's Pendulum effect is if you've got no cards in your other zone, destroy it, and then you can choose a spellcaster Pendulum monster from your extra deck, shuffle it into your main deck, and draw a card off it. So, good way to do some recovery. By natural default, his Pendulum effect does restrict you that he can't choose himself, which is fair. It's also nice. Also, it's just a level 4, so easy for extra deck players as well. Okay, so that's it for the Pendulums that I'm playing, and then the last card in my monster lineup that I'm playing is 3 copies of Mist Valley Apex Avian. I really like this just as a I really like this card because he's a level 7, so he's easy to Pendulum summon, and his effect is when the effect is activated, you can choose a Mist Valley card you control, return that Mist Valley to its hand, negate the effect's activation, and destroy it. The advantage I like about Apex Avian is he just says effect as opposed to card. So he can also stop things like continuous spells and traps, and he can also stop pendulum effects as well. He can also stop pendulum effects as well as stuff that's in grave, which is really useful. He's also a level 7, which is really useful for the absolute, which gives me additional options if I want to summon Absolute Dragon. He's also however, because he's like a main negate thing, he's only really good if I'm going first. So he's also really good to make a nice side card if I'm anticipating going second. Okay, so that's it for the monsters that I'm playing. Next up is the spell lineup, in which I'm playing three pot of desires just to help speed up my deck, increase my hand advantage. Not really too many reasons for me to explain why I'm playing desires. It's just a good draw card. And then 1 Upstart Goblin. Not really any explanation needed. 1 Monster Reborn. Just because I've got the space in my deck, so I figured why not. Plus, since I am playing Apex Avian, does give me at least I do have 1 main deck monster that I can use it on, but ideally I'd probably be using it on one of my good extra deck monsters, or maybe just stealing something from my opponent, because why not? And then the last card in my spell lineup is the card that is one of the promos that recently came out, if you guys haven't heard of it. I'm playing 3 Called by the Grave. For those of you who have not seen what this card does, what you do is you target a monster in your opponent's graveyard as cost, banish it, and then if you do, until the end of the next turn, its effects are negated as well as the activated effects and effects on the fields of the monster with the same original name. So essentially, this is really useful for getting rid of an opponent's hand trap that's trying to stop you, because I've noticed a lot more people are trying to main deck hand traps for anticipating going second or whatever. So yeah, this is really good for stopping hand traps, with the exception of, well, really good for stopping any hand trap that has to discard as cost. So naturally it can't stop Cypher Gear Gamma, which by default is still probably one of the best hand traps in the format. And what's the, which is really useful. So this card's like really useful against the Ghost Girls, who are naturally once per turn cards. So yeah, it's pretty, yeah, I'm really liking it. What I find interesting about this card is, I know in the next set we're getting a new Ghost Girl who stops doing stuff in grave. So interesting enough, this card can stop the new Ghost Girl, and simultaneously the new Ghost Girl can stop this card. Interesting that. But yeah. So I literally just tried this in, I haven't really given it a proper test out, because naturally it's not. Naturally, when I got my packs, it wasn't actually legal yet, so I couldn't use it in my recent tournament. But I'm hoping to test around with this, and hopefully it should prove useful. Okay, that's it for the main deck. And then now into my extra deck. I'm again playing a little bit of all the monster types. So kicking things off, the main card of your extra deck. 2 Heavy Metal Foes Electrumites. The best link monster that you can use for a Pendulum deck. There's so many combos you can use with this card. One of them, like the basic with the Astrograph loop, and then Also, I found another advantage of it is if you've got a harmonizing in your scale and you really need it in your hand, you can add to it its effect, target harmonizing, destroy it, then add that same harmonizing back to your hand so you can pendulum summon it from your hand, because harmonizing can't be summoned from the extra deck. Yeah, some people are... I cranked it up to 2 because I kind of needed just I wanted the additional coverage. I'm not playing 3 because I'm not really too interested in the massive turbo build, and I'd rather have that space in my extra deck to play other cards. As in, frankly, if I play 3 Electrumite, I'd probably cut out other links, and if I get cherries, I'm going to be in a really bad position. And then one Eco Talker. I've chosen this card over the Zephyr Metaltron just because he's more generic. So if I do get cherries, at least I've got a slightly easier monster that I can go into. So yeah. Just serves mainly as my backup link if necessary. And then my last link monster, one star you just Skuldred, because he's like just the best link for at the moment in my opinion. Easiest summon requirements, lots of nice good effects. Yeah. Also acts as a nice backup link just in case. Or a good link to extend off of if I've already done the Electrumite and I didn't want to extend my Pendulum Summon a bit more. So I could do Electrumite to do its things, and then if I can get enough monsters on board to make Skuldred, I can link into it then. Probably the main reasons I play this card is the 3 or more effect of once puts in special summoning monster from my hand to help give me more advantage, and naturally if you use 4 name effect to draw 4 cards and then get rid of 3. Just a good way to reshape your hand, and I absolutely love it for that. That's it for my link monsters. Moving into the XZ's lineup, I'm playing one Abyss Dweller. I got quite a few grave specific decks at my local, so it's really good for that. Then one Naruto, because frankly, if I get 2 chronographs in my extra deck, if I get access to two chronographs, the best thing I can do with them is turn it into a Naruto, which is really useful for spell and trap negations. I've chosen Naruto over Hope Harbinger just because it's more. I can probably make this a lot more consistently, despite the fact I play Dissolver and I play Master Cerberus. So I've got 2 main deck monsters that I can summon pretty easily that could make a Hope Harbinger. Frankly, I'm just more into Naruto for the moment. Then one absolute dragon. I had some space in my. I had like 1 extra space in my extra deck when I was redoing this recently, and frankly, since I play 6 level 7 monsters, I could see no purpose for me not to try with absolute. I see no reason I can't use absolute. Plus, I do have honor, and if I can summon Vortex, so if it's properly first, and for some reason Vortex hits grave, I can make an absolute, and then I've got a chance to bring it back. Or, of course, there's the secondary option of what most people do is make the link to Electrum, make absolute, and then link into a link 3, and then immediately special summon Vortex. So, essentially the main reason I put this in is a way to both res Vortex, and of course since I'm playing part of Desires, it's a way for me to drop Vortex if I happen to banish Dissolver, which I've done once or twice. One Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion, just as a good way to overrun monsters that are high in attack. And last XYZ I'm running, just 1 Tornado Dragon, just a good main deck out for getting rid of back row. Synchros I'm playing, just basic set. 1 Ignister to out potential problems without targeting, or a good way to out potential problems without targeting or destroying. Kind of nice to have in the mirror match as well, to pop my opponent's scales and then get rid of something. Pop one of my opponent's scales and then get rid of something else. 1 Omega. I don't really make Omega too frequently, but he's still just a nice option to have, particularly if my opponent's already got minimum cards in their hand. Just try and reduce their options even more. Also just a nice way to get my stuff back if I banish too much crucial stuff off Desires. And last synchro I'm playing, one Supreme King Dragon Clearwing, because he's a board wipe on summon, he can also kill an opponent's monster and bonus attack, so really nice. Like him for that. And then Fusion lineup, one Vortex, no explanation needed, he negates so many good things, and I love him. And last cards I'm playing, two Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom, since really easy to summon through contact fusion. If I've got an Electrumite in my grave or on the field and I can make Starving Venom, I can just do Electrumite's effect again and then get myself a bit of extra advantage. Because I pumped up Starving Venom 2, I was, like I said, I was considering playing Hope Harbinger, but frankly I feel I'm quite happy with Naruto, particularly on reason that Starving Venom can't be special summoned from the graveyard with Monster Reborn. And I'll just quickly show you guys the side deck that I'm running with. Keep in mind that my side deck is pretty much specified to my locals because I don't really do too many big tournaments, so just follow it. So just use mine as a guide. My main side's 3 Ghost Ogre because it's just really good card to generically side against most matchups. Doesn't really have too many issues. 3 Ash because I do have a few players that run mill based decks at my mill and search heavy decks at my locals. One of the main reasons I'm not main decking the things like Ash now is because, like I said, I'm trying out with Call by the Grave, and like I said, Call by the Grave is really good for stopping your opponent's hand traps. Unfortunately, Called by the Grave acts as a double-edged sword, because if you do it by using it in your turn to stop your opponent's hand trap, if you've got that same hand trap in your hand, you're preventing yourself from using it on your opponent's turn. So if I'm in a position where I'm against an opponent that, say, doesn't really have hand traps, or I haven't seen any, I can side out the Call by the Grave and then throw in some hand traps. Next, 3 Cosmics. Next to my side, 3 Cosmic Cyclone, because Anti-Spell Fragrance still exists. I don't really see it too much. I don't really get too many players at my locals who use it, so I don't normally have to side this in, but it is also really useful against stall decks that run a lot of back row as well. But primarily using it for the option of trying to get rid of Anti-Spell Fragrance immediately if I can have it in my hand during my standby phase when they activate it. And next, 3 Wavering Eyes for the mirror match. I was playing cherries in my side as well, but frankly, I feel that commits too much space. I'd rather use Wavering Eyes to try and stop them from playing completely than use cherries to try and get rid of the Electrumite, and then potentially cherries could prove a slightly less useful card after that. Plus, in a mirror match, the main stuff I'd want to side is Wavering Eyes and Ghost Ogre, because they're the 2 most effective cards. If I add cherries into it, I'm like committing too much of my side deck in a mirror match, and ideally I don't like siding more than 6 cards in a match. So I cut out the cherries to add some space for something else. And then the last card in my matchup, generic outs, 3 evenly matched, because it's just a really good card for going second, particularly in a mirror. Again, this is a nice option in the mirror match if my opponent makes an extremely stupidly broken board turn 1. At the cost of my battle phase, I can just go evenly match, make my opponent get rid of everything except for 1 card. Not particularly good if they got Naruto on board, because Naruto's just gonna straight up negate this, as would Vortex. But evenly matched has proved pretty useful. Okay, so that's my deck profile, guys. Hope you all liked it. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. And like I said with my deck, most of it is specific to my playing style, which is try and set up a solid board of interference in my opponent's turn. for that reason I could be maining hand traps, but I'm kind of in the position that I'd rather have stuff that I can turbo out my Electrumite and get myself set up, as opposed to having too much hand trap disruption. So yeah. Plus, I find Apex Avian's really good as a generic disruption. But, so yeah, use my deck as a guide, and if you guys also need some additional help of like what cards you think you might want to consider, if you guys haven't seen it, there is a new site that's recently come up called Yugioh Scope. It takes the site Dueling Book to see what cards have been used most competitively over the course of that week, and tells you how well they've been doing, win-loss ratio, things like that. So that's another good way for players to look into what cards are being used competitively. Also lets you edit your side deck as well, for you to like anticipate what kind of decks you'll be seeing around times. Because if you look at like the top sets of cards, like normally about half the top 10 cards will probably be based around one deck. So you can think, so if you've got like a massive tournament coming up, like a regional or a YCS, you can use that site to check over. You'll be like, okay, there's a lot of this card being used, so I should probably be expecting this deck. So things like, so yeah, that's something to consider. I'll leave a link for it in the description, and hopefully see you guys soon. Thanks very much.